Good morning, everyone. This is Dr. Cindy Gordon, and this is our Technology CEO podcast. And I'm really excited to have the chance to interview Dylan Fox, who's the co-founder and CEO of AssembyAI. It's always interesting in the AI marketplace, which is growing, as you know, very rapidly, to talk about some of the challenges, some of the lessons learned, and some of the insights to really advance our industry that we're all so passionate about. So Dylan, you've got an incredible story, and I thought we could begin our podcast just for, stepping back, if you could roll back, 6 years ago when we were kind of thinking about launching this enterprise. What was the innovation catalyst to move into this space? And I saw you were former Cisco. So, just would love to hear your story on the engineering side.
Yeah, definitely. So I had gotten really into AI, so machine learning and deep learning. I am a software engineer by background. So for the last 10, 12 years, I've been a software engineer. I'd gotten really into machine learning and deep learning, which led me to joining a research team at Cisco. And on that team, we were working on prototyping what you could think of as a Siri for the enterprise. So Cisco sells all these meeting room devices into conference rooms around the world, and we were looking at how can we put a virtual assistant, like a voice assistant, onto those meeting devices, those devices that are in the meeting rooms around the world. And we were building out the natural language processing and the natural language understanding technology on the team that I was working on. And we went to go buy speech recognition technology. So this is back in like 2016 or 2017. And long story short, the process for buying the speech recognition technology from the vendors we looked at was just a nightmare. And this was at a time where I was used to, as a software developer, a modern developer experience from companies like Twilio and Stripe that had really like set a new standard for how easy it should be to integrate technology as a developer and what the experience should be like. So I was shocked at, one of the companies we looked at like mailed me a CD-ROM to try their software, and I didn't even have a CD-ROM drive in my laptop anymore. So it was like, what do you even do here? And so at the same time, in speech recognition, but more broadly in machine learning and deep learning, there were a lot of advances being made, and a lot of really exciting new research coming out in the speech recognition field that was pushing automatic speech recognition accuracy to new heights, because it kind of plateaued in the like early 2010s. The technology just kind of plateaued. So really the idea was, what if you can use the latest deep learning research to build really accurate automatic speech recognition technology and then make that available to developers in a really simple and easy to use API that a developer at a hackathon could use, or a developer at a Fortune 500 company could use just as easily as they can get started with Twilio or Stripe. And that's where we got started. So we've grown the business and our offerings a lot since then, but that was like the initial kind of spark for why we wanted to get started. And we're very much a deep learning company. We're an AI company. Most of the people on our team were a little over 20 people at our company. Most of those people are deep learning researchers or engineers, because we really think of ourselves as a deep learning company and an AI company. And we're doing a lot more than just speech recognition now, which is really exciting.
So interesting. So essentially, if I summarize what you've just shared, is that you've built an enablement layer with an open API that really can allow developers to leverage the complexity of speech recognition and give them a simplified access to take their software use cases and have that extensibility. Would that be a fair summary? It's that the target user is our technology software developers in the B2B marketplace that want to solve different use cases.
Absolutely, yeah. And what we've seen is that there's just been this explosion of audio and video content
Absolutely.
online. You see like even with platforms like TikTok and Clubhouse, there's just this explosion of audio and video content. And the first step is unlocking that content so you can
Yeah.
do things with it and right, exactly, and understand it. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. That's exciting. In terms of the, obviously, when I went through your website, there's no question the call centers amass a lot of data, and
Right.
you are in a position there to understand customer sentiment, understand maybe churn risks, or even kind of the positive aspects of customers that are really very satisfied and happy, and does not necessarily, just gives you confidence on the quality of your services. But what
Right.
other use cases? I mean, obviously with Zoom exploding, although it did have a stock market correction recently with a little dip with the new variant, and also people are starting to see a bit of a slowdown in some of the purchasing sides of that. But what are you seeing as the next generation use cases, maybe in terms of not the customer service side, but maybe in terms of the sales side, or maybe in terms of the healthcare segment side, where there's a
Mhm.
lot of diagnostic opportunities? Would love to just get your perspective and what you see is, really the stickiness of where the volume's coming from with your sales offerings.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think, like you said, speech recognition in a contact center use case, I mean, that's been around for a while. Everyone's kind of used to calling in to like change your flight, and you have some automated thing you have to go through, and it's a nightmare. It's like they don't understand you. So a couple examples, but I think thematically, to talk about it for a second, when we started the company, it was really about how can we build really accurate automatic speech recognition technology so companies can transcribe their audio and video content. And we always knew that transcribing audio and video content was really like the first step. Usually what our customers are doing and companies are doing is they're building applications and products on top of those transcriptions. Certainly some of them are transcribing their content for accessibility use cases like closed captioning and visual voicemail type applications. I don't know if you have an iPhone, but if you go
I do.
to your you can see the transcript of a voicemail. So there's accessibility use cases like that are just about pure transcription. And we certainly have customers that are using our technology for those basic use cases. But what we've seen an increase in, and this is really where we think the future of the market's going, is using that data, using those transcriptions to build really interesting products and features, and sometimes entire companies on top of audio and video data. Because once you unlock audio and video data and put it into a more pliable format, you can detect sentiment more easily, you can detect topics, you can summarize, so you're kind of like unlocking this data. And so that's why what we've been doing is branching out, and now we have APIs for sentiment analysis. We can summarize audio and video content. We can extract entities and key phrases. We have a lot of features like that we think of as additional building blocks on top of the audio and video. And so, for example, one of our bigger companies is a company called CallRail based out of Atlanta. They're a leading company in the conversation intelligence and call tracking space. And so it is telephony based, but it's not, a contact center application. And so what they do is they have a platform where if you're a small business owner and you're placing physical ads in the real world or ads online, they will automatically generate dynamic phone numbers for each ad that you're placing. So you can know as a business owner, okay, that billboard, on this highway drove this many calls, and this billboard on that other highway didn't drive any calls to my business. So I'm going to, cut that billboard and focus on this billboard that actually is driving calls. So they help you track the source of where your calls are coming from your different advertisements. And what they're doing is transcribing all of those calls that are coming into their platform. And they're doing that with our technology, with our API, and they're detecting key phrases, they're detecting keywords automatically, and they're doing that in a way that helps their customers at a glance get analysis and data about the calls that are coming into their business. So they know, like, not only did I get 20 phone calls to my small business, but I got 20 phone calls to my lawn care business, and they all talked about, lawn maintenance, so they're all like highly qualified calls that came in. Or if I'm a law practice, I got, 100 calls and they were about this one piece of law that I don't practice in. So I need to go and maybe correct the copy on my ads or make my ads more specific to be more targeted. So that's a really interesting use case. They're also, detecting sentiment of the calls that are coming in to help give their customers more information about the calls that are coming into their platform. And it's hugely valuable, because without that information, you're kind of just flying blind, placing ads out there. Now, another example is we have a really cool startup called Milk Video, milk.video, milkvideo.com if you go to their website. And what they do is they help companies repurpose their video and audio content into shorter clips for marketing purposes. So you could imagine we take this podcast and we upload that to Milk, and then we can, generate like 10-second kind of sound bites that we can use exactly to share. And what they're doing with our API is, they're transcribing all that content so that they can provide captions, but they're also using our summarization feature to help summarize the content that's uploaded to their platform, so that, you don't have to go through and manually pick like which parts of this 10-minute or hour-long video or podcast should I create into a soundbite. They're just automatically recommending, hey, this part is about this, so you should cut this, 60-second clip into a soundbite. And they're able to do that with our technology, because not only are we transcribing it, but we're summarizing it. And what's really cool is exactly
gives them the context to be able to really execute in a very focused, targeted way. And that kind of precision marketing, right, that you're talking about, and how you can drive insights faster.
Exactly.
What are you seeing on the I'd call it the sales side of things, where the reality is you're in the Zoom calls, you're in with the client. Obviously, the transcriptions there are really important, but also the real-time feedback loops. Are you seeing a lot of companies start to innovate there at all, just given the volume of calls of sales professionals?
Yeah, we are. So, we have a couple of pretty large customers that are doing real-time transcription with our API, and then using that transcription to automatically recommend, talk tracks, or like objection responses, or just to like pull up more helpful information to the sales agent that's on the call. So we've definitely seen that as a growing use case, especially as the technology has gotten more accurate. The speech recognition has gotten more accurate over the last couple of years. Yeah,
for sure. It's an interesting world. What are your perspectives just in terms of the privacy side of the clients knowing that the emotion detection and the sentiment detection is going on? Are you seeing more clear disclosure of people saying we are using these kinds of tools for these purposes?
Yeah, it's a great question. We are seeing more disclosure. And, personally, me, like, I don't usually like to record Zoom calls, from like a privacy perspective, especially externally, but, even internally sometimes. So I think what Zoom is doing, for example, is, they make it really clear when the meeting's being recorded. They like notify all the participants, we're recording this Zoom meeting now, and it's like very explicit that you can see that's going on. So I think, and on the phone call side, in a lot of states, you have to say, this, at least in states in the US, I don't know how it works internationally, but, you have to state, hey, this call is being recorded for, I think it's like quality control purposes. I forget what the what the standard phrase is.
Right.
But it is definitely something where, the users of the technology will have to be transparent from a privacy perspective. And we do a couple things on our side to help with that. Like, we don't store any data that's sent to our platform, not even for like training purposes. So like to retrain our models and improve our models. Everything that's sent to our API, it's immediately deleted after the processing is done, and it's permanently deleted. So, we don't store any records of that. And a lot of our customers, we actually see implement similar practices.
That's a very good point.
Yeah,
I definitely see, as the next few years unfold, I guess the key thing is also the markets looking for, especially if you're public, more verification of your practices as part of the audit controls, right?
Yeah.
And some of so it's an interesting space. Now, just stepping back, I know as a CEO, the realities of building a company, attracting the talent. You've got an incredible geek squad of talented engineers that you've curated, and I know you're solving a really big problem. But are there lessons that you've learned, or as you've gone through the journey, or the obstacles and challenges that you've faced? What would you like our viewers to really appreciate as a CEO in the AI market, building a successful company, beyond just the realities of finding good investors, right? Which is always being well capitalized is key. But what other things have you learned?
So, I mean, like you said, I think one of the main things I've learned is just how expensive and hard it is to really build a good AI company, because there's a lot of data, there's a lot of model training, there's a lot of compute costs. So it's really hard to bootstrap a company like this. You almost like need, I think, to have some capital upfront and to raise external capital, because just the cost of compute, if you're going to try to compete in the AI space in terms of like training models and deploying models, it's really expensive, for most cases, and it's arguably getting more expensive. I know there's a lot of optimizations that are coming out to make it faster, to make like AI models faster for inference and when you're deploying them. But yeah, it's just getting even more expensive, I think, is what we see. So that's one thing just to comment on. But I think one thing that I think about a lot is, as a startup, is you really, and not as an AI startup, but just as a startup period, it's really all about like iterating quickly. Like you collect feedback, you iterate quickly, and I think there's this idea that like, especially in the early stages, you get some customer feedback and then you kind of stay up all weekend and you fix your product and you ship it on Monday, and it's like, okay, you've added the new like widget or feature, and now you can go make that customer happy or close new customers. But with an AI company, especially one like ours, our models take like weeks to train. So if you give us feedback or you spot some issue with our model, not only do we have to research how to fix that, but then we also need to train a new model. So the iteration speed is just slow. And the way to kind of get around that is parallelize your experiments. You have like, 5 researchers doing 5 experiments in parallel, but that also comes with a lot higher cost. So I think AI companies almost need to be treated a little bit more like biotech startups, where it's a lot of a trial and error and experimentation, and you're a little your hands are a little bit tied in terms of how fast you can iterate, because like, if you come and you tell me, hey, your transcription accuracy didn't do well on this file, right? Yeah. It's usually not because of some bug in our system. It's like the model's just not good enough. So how to fix that, I have to do research. I have to, like, the answer is not clear. And so iteration speed is something that I think is definitely more challenging for startups in the AI space, and something that people going into this space should kind of understand. Yeah.
Do you think the venture capitalists understand that because of the pressure point on MRR? I mean, I totally get the realities of a model being deployed, and also managing the features and managing the drift as well, and also companies move. So do you think the VCs are giving the relaxed period in terms of the growth numbers, or to your point, there's not the understanding like there is in a biotech or pharmaceutical company, that a lot of complexities as you go through the clinical trials and then you evolve? And so I'm just really quite pleased with your perspective there. So I'd love to hear more if you're seeing more awakening in the financial markets of understanding these kinds of complexities.
So there's a very nuanced answer here that I can give. I think the good ones definitely do. I think that we're very, very fortunate to have some like really good investors that understand what we're going up against and how hard it is. But I do think there's a lot of confusion and noise in the space because there's a lot of companies that call themselves AI or ML companies, um, you know, that maybe not working on the like actual core technology. They may be like packaging it up into like a complete, like end-to-end solution for customers. So I think we're in a unique spot where like we're actually, developing uh, this really tricky and like tough to build technology. And yeah, I think that a lot I do come across a lot of investors who just don't fully, grasp or like the technical term
Yeah.
like grok that, but it is a challenge as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say.
So that's one of the key lessons learned. Is there any other key lesson that you'd like to speak about, Dylan? I'm always curious about the need for balance. I understand that you've got a young family. How is all of that, and what insights may you have for ensuring that CEOs don't burn themselves out, right? It's a lot of hard work.
Yeah, it's difficult. It's definitely difficult. I'm fortunate, my wife is also a founder, so we can kind of commiserate with each other, and that helps a lot.
Oh, that's too
So
funny.
yeah. So no, I mean some of the things that I do to kind of recharge, like I listen to a lot of podcasts. I go on a lot of hikes with my wife, and now with our new board, and I when I can, I do a lot of reading too. But it is difficult. I mean, so this is my second startup. I worked on a startup prior to this, and that first startup, it was kind of just like 24/7, like go, 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 but you burn out. And I think what I've kind of tried to think about and be a little bit more aware of this time around is like, you're going to have, 3 6 months periods where it's like 24/7. But if you can have like a month or 2 month period where it's maybe a little bit more normal, you can kind of like it's kind of like when you do a cycling class, and it's like it's like active recovery. That's the word I'm looking for, active recovery. So you're still working, you're not like taking off, but maybe you're not like working around the clock for like a month, and you can like actively recover, and then you can
Yeah,
push again.
yeah.
So
Well, I
I
see
think that
Dylan.
active recovery is huge.
Yeah, the that time for reflection and renewal, right? It's actually one of the
Yeah.
top skills of a CEO. If you look back, 15 years ago, in most of the leadership research, financial business acumen and financial was way at the top.
Mm,
Now it's reflection and renewal is actually one of the number one, and emotional intelligence, just in terms of, if you're attracting a diverse and inclusive team, you need to
yeah.
have that heightened awareness, that heightened sensitivity. But if you don't have time to reflect and renew
Right.
and build that sort of those capabilities, you actually don't see what's in front of you, right? So it's and
Yeah.
that's a nice thing I think about what you're doing with your company. It's like what's in front of you, and you're peeling the onion back, trying to drive deeper insights below the surface, and then mining that. I'm just a bit curious in terms of maybe a closing comment on, obviously you can give the enablement layer and the use cases, companies can be creative, but are you thinking at all of the analytics layer as well, in the sense of the dashboarding and the extensibility and the toolkits there, or are you leaving that up to the actual software developers to have their own dashboards? Because
Exactly.
one of the
Yeah.
things that I've learned is, there is so much insight in the data and the patterns, giving those views, but to the business side rather than the technologist side. So I'm just curious if you're thinking about that extensibility in your offering, or maybe it's already there.
Yeah, it's a great question. We don't plan to go down, that route. We're really going to be focused on like the research, the technology building, the model
Okay.
building, and then
Okay.
exposing that through these easy to use APIs for our customers and developers to build, the kind of fully
Yeah.
end to end solutions. Because it's
Gotcha.
so hard to do that. It's like
Yeah.
it's a
So you
whole
would, yeah,
competency.
yeah,
Yeah.
I would agree. So it'd be like your API could connect with the insights to Power BI, or to,
Yeah.
Tableau, or any, seismic, whatever that's out there for dashboarding enablement. And I do agree with you. The analytics visualization space is very much another competency. But
Mhm.
what about in the back end of the data patterns for the technologists and the dashboards on the strength of the features and all of
Mhm.
those enablement views? Do you have an analytic layer for them where they can go in and see what's happening and
Yeah.
maybe change and modify the features extraction?
Yeah, you can. So you can, if you're a developer building with our APIs, you can log into your developer
Mhm.
dashboard and then you
Yeah.
can see we have like a bunch of charts on like, what the completion rate is and turnaround time and confidence scores. And
Okay. Good.
you can get insight into how the system is operating, almost
Yeah.
like your performance KPIs.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so you can do that as someone
Mhm.
building with
So it's
our
almost like
APIs.
you're a research enabling company and now allowing other data scientists to, augment on the client side and extend and take advantage of the depth of having access to really skilled, deep experts in speech recognition and deep learning, but allow, maybe if I only got one data scientist on my client side, I can really leverage your team and your abilities to help me scale up. Really interesting. So just in closing, maybe for one last comment, because we're kind of at the top of our time today, Dylan. Um, if you had, it's kind of the holiday season too, right? You just finished, U.S. Thanksgiving. We're going into the holiday season. What message, in one or two sentences would you have for inspiration as we, try and close out COVID? Although with this new variant, I'm not so sure.
I
But as
know.
you look ahead for 2022, what might be your thoughts to share for closing?
Yeah, I think, I think about this a lot because as startups are just so hard. And I think it's just about like showing up every day, and really just, even if one day is not productive, like that's fine. Just show up every day, keep putting your best foot forward. And I know that may be cheesy, but I think that is a big part of it. It's just, show up and just really just keep going. Yeah.
So it reminds me of the song "The Show Must Go On," right? We
Yeah,
could really
yeah,
could bring that in, right?
yeah,
Anyways,
exactly. Yeah,
so Dylan, thank you so much for joining our podcast today. It was a pleasure meeting you, hearing your story, and I wish you and your company tremendous success as the year closes, and also 2022 brings only incredible growth and new beginnings for you and your family and your colleagues. Thank you very much, Dylan.
yeah. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on here.